This episode of Bright Hearth is brought to you by the Kings Ridge Elderberries, QP Goat Soap, Backwards Planning Financial, Private Family Banking, and by our supporters at patreon.com.
You are he who took me from the womb. You made me trust you at my mother's breast. On you I was cast from my birth, and from my mother's womb you have been my God. Psalm 22, 9-10.
This is not a religion club or a theology society that meets on Sundays. We are the body of Christ. And so coming to worship the Father here means that we are coming to and through Christ. We come to the Father in the power of the Spirit, traveling the road who is Christ. We're traveling Christ the way all together. And as we travel in that way, we want to take great care not to place a stumbling block in the road for any of our little ones. Pastor Douglas Wilson.
Welcome back to Bright Hearth, everybody. Brian, Lexy, and Alfred.
Alfred, how you doing, my guy?
Alfie's here.
You say hi to everybody, Alf? He might say hi by crying, so that's his.
He's
that's
our
his
timer
greeting
tonight.
Yes. Yes. So, babe, how are you doing tonight?
Good. How are you?
Hanging in there?
Yeah, it's cozy. It's been a cozy day.
It's been rainy and
Cold.
a what is it? A
Hustery?
flustery, blustery, Winnie the Pooh day? Is that
Flustery?
Flustery?
Blustery.
Blustery.
Okay.
There's something you always said about Winnie the Pooh days, but now
It's just
I
a
can't
very
recall
Pooh
it.
day.
It is indeed. It is indeed. So,
What's our first question?
oh yeah, that's right.
We're in a Q&A
We're in the Q&A
season.
season. So I should probably get to the question here. It's actually one mainly first directed at you. I'll talk too. I can't help myself, but this question is primarily directed first at Lexy, and then the question is as follows. As a fellow pastor's wife, I was wondering if you could offer any practical tips for managing many young children in the pews at church, especially with kiddos under 2. What are realistic expectations, and how can we train our children to get there without making them hate church? You don't have any experience with this at all, so maybe like hypothetically, theoretically. If you could imagine what it would be like, babe, to try and get a whole lot of little people through a service while your husband is preaching and can't help you at all, if you had to just imagine your way into that scenario, because you've never been there personally, do you have any thoughts for... I'm just kidding, guys. This is Lexi's whole life. She was forged by it, born into it. You were only a visitor.
I think it starts with the night before for everybody, including mom, to have everything as ready as possible so she's not flustered the morning of church. Up until 2 years ago, I went to church without you. So
what do you mean by that? You went to church without me?
So you would get up and go to church.
Hopefully not in the way people probably thought you mean it.
Sorry, yeah.
We didn't go to different churches.
You would get up and go to church very early and without the rest of us,
Yes.
even on holidays. So we've only had 2 Easter breakfasts together our
Yeah.
entire married life. So I don't know what your situation is like, if that's you, but I mean, preparation is key the night before. I also think preparation is key, though, the entire week in regards to behavior for the children.
Mm-hmm.
Just reminding them, like tonight, I mean, you want to explain how we do our catechism and prep for Sundays and what we're reminding them of during catechism?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a good one. It's on my list as well. Just when we are thinking about Sunday morning, we're thinking about Sunday morning as like game time and the week as practice.
Yeah.
So we want to build in weekly practices so that our children can participate in a way that is intelligent, where they're not just needing to be, especially as they get older, they're not just needing to be pacified or distracted. They're actually understanding the point of the service, and they're understanding how they participate as a part of the people of God, because the children are part of the people of God in worshiping the Lord with the gathered saints. So through the week for that practice, one of the things that we do, and some weeks we might hit this twice, some weeks we might hit it 5 times. It depends on what's going on around our schedule. We're more concerned with consistency than perfection.
Yeah.
And not getting like super discouraged if we have a psalm sing and then we have something else, and then the next night we have people like, it's okay. But what we do is right around the time we're wrapping up kind of people eating at dinner, I'll go grab the Westminster Shorter Catechism book and our Catherine Voss Storybook Bible, which is what we use right now with the age range of children we have. And then I will begin with catechism for the very little kids, which is Right now, Winnie and Cyril are the two that are too young for Westminster, but ready to participate.
And how old is Winnie?
Winnie's 2.
And she can say,
oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So I ask him a series of questions. One of them, Cyril, are you baptized? And he pats his head, yes, I'm baptized. And I stole this from someone else. I'm pretty sure, like Zach Wilkie or something. And as with everything good that we do, I stole it from someone else. You should steal from us, and you'll be stealing from them too. And then we say, hey, who made you? And they say, God. They point up, God. Who died on the cross for your sin? Jesus. Where does Jesus come live if we trust him? In my heart. Right? So that's like the little kid catechism to start.
Yeah,
2-year-olds.
you even started that with Alfred last week, where you would ask him and then you pat him on the head.
I pat him on the head.
And said, you're baptized.
You're baptized.
And then who lives in your heart if you trust him?
Jesus, yes.
Yeah, so
yes.
You can start it really young.
Yep. And then I'll start them on the first question of the Westminster Shorter Catechism when they're 2 still, 2 or 3.
That was the point, is that Winnie can say that.
Because it's an easy one.
Yeah.
It's what is the chief end of man? Man's chief end is to glorify God and enjoy him forever. And I've set a lot of these to music, so they've heard them too. It's kind of like in the house. So yeah, Cyril can say that clean right away. Mm-hmm. Man's chief end is to glorify God and enjoy him forever. Good job, Cy. Winnie says something like, man's chief end, glorify God. And then I say, and every single time I say and she says,
joy
him ever. So we do that, and then a lot of nights as well, we're singing and praying kind of throughout the day, from chapel through bedtime, before dinner. But then a lot of the time we'll walk over to the living room. Everybody stands up like we're in church. We sing a song all together and pray. And we do that, like, again, between 2 and 5 times a week as practice for the service.
And we tell them, like, you should be sitting still listening to the story like we're in church. You should be raising your hands when we're singing like we're in church. You should not be twirling around like we're in church. Yes. Because the thing is, and mom should be there too to enforce this, which I really do try and sit down for this part. It's easy for me to want to go do something to get ready for tomorrow. Not like, oh, I'm going to go read a book instead, but still my own work.
Like productivity.
Yes. But if I'm there, I can quickly spank in a way that I can't on Sundays. And you guys, I am telling you, the weeks we forget to do this,
it shows.
It shows up on Sunday morning.
Yeah, for Lexi.
Yeah, so that's a big one, is like preparation through the rest of the week.
Yes.
I'm not against it. Like, I don't mind people helping me. I just actually found that my children were more disobedient when other people helped me on a regular basis than me just having them all, because the transfer of authority wasn't working for whatever reason, when they would then need to be at an event where I didn't have help, or like, okay, you sat with so-and-so during the service. Now it's after the service and you need to listen to me again. Yeah. It just never worked well. So I have all of the kids. I don't mind. Sometimes like Ari will have a friend sit with us, and I don't mind at all. But for the most part, I don't even like the kids having toys or anything. And again, I think this is partly my personality, but partly also just the conviction that they can participate. If you're training them with toys or like little picture books, something that is not actually communicating to them what Sunday morning is about, then you're not actually teaching them to worship with you. Mm-hmm. So, and I think it helps our service. Our liturgy is very embodied.
It's participatory.
Yes. So the children actually enjoy doing that, and they know, I was telling Brian and someone else this week on our drive, because we do drive separate still to church right now, at least. The children, when we got in the car, I had 2 of them like confess and apologize to something they said to me that morning. And I think the reason is because they know I've been talking to them about what the time of confession is when we're kneeling. And I think it's because they know we're going to go confess to the Lord our sins this morning.
Yeah.
So I need to get right with mom beforehand. And it was just interesting because they had never done that before, but it was literally as soon as the van doors shut, Mom, I'm sorry I said that. Mom, I'm sorry I was disrespectful in this way.
Yeah.
So it's cool because you see, like, I could easily feel discouraged by the fact that I'm, taking 2 little toddlers and sweating my butt off, wearing a baby and carrying all 3 of them up and down the stairs for discipline, all service. But when I see something like that, it's really encouraging to me because it means they're understanding what it is about.
Yeah. I would sum that up by saying that our primary aim over time with our children is participation rather than distraction.
Yes.
So sometimes you're going to have, especially in little kid years, it's okay, there's the occasional like little pen and a piece of paper or that kind of thing But we're not going to replace that at each stage with a new age-appropriate distraction. Like the 6-year-old is not going to have a distraction. The goal is to train them so that they're participating in confession, and they're confessing their sin, and in singing, and in listening actively, and in the responsive readings, and lifting their hands for the doxology, and knowing the liturgical responses to our order of service. So, grace, mercy, and peace to you from God the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, and also to you.
Yeah,
they know those.
They really can do it. Like I've had Cyril and Winnie take notebook and pen the last 2 weeks. I actually think I'm going to take it from them again because, and I'm remembering why all their church clothes come home with ink all over them.
Yeah.
So. But before that, for the last couple months, Winnie has been sitting on her own in the pew. And I just remind her, you cannot get down. Because for her, the temptation is up and down, up and down, up and down. And, if you get down in a reason that you really don't need to get down, you will get a spanking. And she can do it, guys. She really can do it. I mean, I play with her hair. I smile at her. I encourage her.
Yeah.
They get a treat before service. It's not like... They do have fun. They have fun.
Yeah,
they genuinely have fun.
And they love seeing their friends at church.
They love seeing their friends. And they love singing. That's the cool thing about the psalm sing is they all look forward, including Winnie. Winnie. She always asks when we're driving to church, we sing psalm? Yes. So she knows and enjoys participating in the culture at her level.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of this is just keeping a high standard and realizing that your children are created as infants to be worshipers of the Lord, and they can do it.
Our sponsor, Private Family Banking Partners, is on a mission to help Christians live out the Dominion Mandate by making a stealth-like move away from the mainstream banks and into their own privatized banking system. This innovative system is designed to guarantee uninterrupted compound interest and tax-free growth without exposure to typical stock market risks. To join this growing community that is already building wealth into future generations and converting post-mill talk into post-mill action, contact Private Family Banking Partner Chuck DeLateranti at his email, chuck@privatefamilybanking.com. That's chuck@privatefamilybanking.com.
To set up an appointment and to receive a free copy of Chuck's new book, Protect Your Money Now, How to Build Multi-Generational Wealth Outside of Wall Street and Avoid the Coming Banking Meltdown, go to the links in the show notes below.
Did you know that fresh American black elderberries are naturally high in phosphorus, vitamin A, vitamin B6, and vitamin C, as well as many anthocyanins that serve as antioxidants? Regular supplementation with elderberry extracts has been shown to decrease chance of influenza and lessen cold duration and symptoms.
The Kings Ridge fresh frozen elderberries are hand-picked, destemmed, washed, and quickly frozen at their family farm in East Central Indiana. Their whole operation is designed around maximizing freshness and antioxidant content of their berries. Trevor and Autumn truly hope that their elderberry syrup and fresh frozen elderberries bless your family this cold and flu season.
Don't buy dried European elderberries and support the global economic agenda. Visit tkrfarm.com and purchase your elderberry needs from the Kings Ridge elderberries. And that link is in the description for you. Yeah, and I think you have to understand that success for you as a mama is often going to look like missing many chunks of the service in this stage of life in order to discipline consistently and quickly in the service even. Like, okay, we're going to take the little 2-year-old out and we're going to go discipline, because you might think, oh, it's not success. I'm missing 10 to 30 minutes of every service. Ours is a 90-minute service, right? So, Lexi might miss anywhere from 10 to an hour, 10 minutes to an hour, like when it's all added up of the service. And I try to encourage her that is actually what success looks like for you. You're not failing. You're doing a good job. And that's your duty right now.
I think when my views of worship changed, probably over the last 2 years specifically, Doug's A Primer on Worship really helped me with this for some reason. And honestly, just us changing the liturgy helped, and you pastoring all of us through that really helped. But I now understand that I'm not actually missing worship to go discipline the child. It is part of my worship to go discipline the child.
Yeah.
So it doesn't feel sad anymore. This might be sad for some people to hear. Maybe it really is just personal opinion. I just think all moms should really fight to stay out of the nursing mother's room with children, because again, it is a way that you are training them towards. It's just like with spanking. Like if you train them that they get spanked when mom counts to 3, then you're still not training them to obey.
I see what you mean. So they get to escape
Correct.
the service and
Correct.
go run around in the nursing mother's room.
Correct.
And that's not the goal.
No, it's not the goal. I really try, like maybe 2 or 3 times a year am I in there. And typically that's through a transition period. Like I had a newborn. This was our first or second week and it went really bad. So here we are. We're going to try again next week so that we don't have to end up in here. Or like we changed service times and I just wasn't prepared this week or something went wrong and that's why I'm in here.
Yeah.
So, so you're training them towards the nursing mother's room instead of towards participation. And I know everyone has different reasons they're in there. I'm just saying I think it is a good ideal to work towards staying in the service.
Yeah.
Especially if you have 2 parents there.
Yeah, and Lexi's doing it on hard mode. The question is on hard mode. When you're a pastor's wife and your husband's participating or leading the liturgy, it's hard. It's like, you think of us with 6 kids ranging from a 4-month-old currently through a 10-year-old, and to take the 2-year-old out sometimes means leaving the 3-year-old.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, because we do have so many nursing mothers, I can't take all my kids in there. Right. And that was something that at first, when my kids were younger, it was a little bit easier. And then when I realized I can't take the older boys in there, it just made me realize I don't actually need to be in here. I can train all of my children. Like it is pointless for me to come in here because I'm training them towards naughtiness, not towards obeying me.
Yes.
So... yeah,
I think we've been circling around this a lot, but the first place that my head went to when I saw this question, and like we've gotten it a couple different ways, so I said, this is the question we're going to do for this episode, is just, what is the goal? Like, it's so important that as a parent, you get clear first on the goal. Where am I trying to end up? Where am I training my children to? Because otherwise you get caught in the tyranny of necessity and of the now, where you're like, you're just reacting and saying, oh, my kid's noisy. Oh, my kid's fussy. I need to go out of the service. I need to find a distraction. I need to get him a toy. I need to get him a snack. I got to figure out a bunch of ways to manage.
We don't do snacks during service either.
I got to figure out a way to manage all of their behavior or their... And the problem with that approach is that you're actually not approaching it first with a goal in mind, which is judicial maturity for your children, maturity in Christ, aiming for their heart that they love the Lord's service. They don't just tolerate it or get distracted through it. Mm-hmm. Because what we're aiming for is covenant succession.
Yeah.
We're aiming for our children to, through one of God's main appointed means of becoming like Christ, which is the gathered worship of God's people, we're training our children to be Christians, again, like the cold open, from their earliest days. Psalm 22, you are he who took me from the womb. You made me trust at my mother's breast. Like when we have a little 4-month-old in the service, he is being trained in faith right there at his mother's breast in the service. And so you have to start with, if you don't have a clear, this is true of like almost anything that we do as human beings, but if you don't have a clear goal, then you're not going to hit anything distinctive or intentional. You'll just always be reacting like an amoeba to stimuli.
Yeah, that's
stimuli.
A good way. I hadn't thought about it like that, reactionary.
So I think that's where a lot of parents get trapped. Is they're like, this is so tiring. And again, it is tiring, but it's less tiring if you're like, I'm training my children for something worthwhile. And being tired is a success right now because I'm aiming for something.
And I promise you guys, it won't be tiring, especially, I really feel like the key is training them during the week.
Yes.
That has made a huge difference for me. I mean, it's probably, this may sound crazy, I don't know. It's probably easier for me now with 6, one of them being a 4-month-old. Cyril and Winnie are at a really hard spot because they're our closest 2 kids in age. Mm-hmm. And Winnie, just being honest, likes to throw fits on Sundays.
Yeah.
I've never really had kids do that before, so that's been a unique challenge, but it's actually been easier with all 6. Then my hardest was probably when I had 4. When Cyril was a newborn and we came back from COVID, that was like a big panic sesh for me.
I remember, I recall it.
Yeah, that was a really hard one because your grandma moved away just after that too. So I had Brian's grandma would sit with me for a couple years. It was just really helpful, but it's easier now. And I really do think the key is Sunday
Is to train it.
Yes. And it's also not just because I have older kids, guys, because I really don't want my boys to be my slaves. I want them to enjoy it too. And I want them to go be able to talk to their friends and participate as Christians and serve as, there was a long season there, probably over a year, where Ari actually ran the slides on Sundays. So he didn't even sit with me because he was helping to serve. So it's not just because I have older kids that it's more helpful. So
yeah, the older kids can do some things like when you have to go out of the room to go discipline, it's okay to say, hey, 8-year-old, keep an eye on your brother here while we're going, but he's still participating in the service.
Yeah.
You don't want to be like, hey,
he's not parenting for me
older
on
kid,
Sundays.
take the 2-year-old out to this room. I'm going to take this one out here. I'm going to do this. Because they need to participate as well in the service.
And it's not their responsibility.
Better to enroll as a pastor's wife in that unique situation. Better to enroll some help if you need to.
Yeah.
And don't feel bad about doing that. If there's a grandma in the congregation
and
or
everybody
a single lady.
is always, and you did for a while there, you did have Ben helping, like really stepping in when I needed things. And he still is really good at checking in on that.
Yep.
But I can turn to whoever is behind me. Even Kyle, there's been a single guy sitting behind us for weeks that he knows to just kind of smile or say, Cyril, sit up straight. And
sit up straight, bud.
Everyone knows it's not awkward. And I think part of it was I had to get over that. Maybe when I was a younger mom, it did feel awkward to me.
Yeah, sure.
But now it's kind of like, this is just life. We're all trying to do this. So
yeah. And the thing is, like, you're actually giving somebody an opportunity to bear another's burden in a Christian way as fruit to their account. And most people are happy to do it. They don't want to intrude and impose a lot of people. They feel like, oh, it's their kids. I don't want to be weird. So it's okay to ask if you're in a unique situation. If you're a widow, a young widow, and you have children and no husband to help, if you're a pastor's wife, if you're in a situation that's unusual, where it's actually pretty manageable. Like when I was in the service this last Sunday, because Pastor Khan was preaching, I was able to have Winnie on my lap, and she did a lot better than she often does. Because again, like I just had this one job of keeping Winnie focused on the service as much as possible. Lexi was able to have the baby and, occasionally say, hey, Cyril, sit down, listen to the service. If you're not in that situation, though, where you have a husband there to help you, then, go find some help if you need it. If you, especially if you have like 8 kids or 9 kids, or you have like 3 kids under 3, which I know some people have that.
The ages are the hard part about it. Yeah.
Absolutely.
But I still think your ideal should be long-term. How can I get better at this next week? That's what I'm always asking myself is, well, this didn't work. What can I change for next week?
What can we aim for next week? I do think there's some practical things as well to keep in mind, like do love your neighbors in church. So don't just let your children overpower the service with fits and be like, well, they're supposed to be learning how to be in the service, and I'm training their little hearts, and like everyone's on board with this. If your child's screaming at the top of their lungs, it really is not loving to the congregation, to take care of that.
You should probably discipline quickly.
Yeah, like, oh, we were throwing a big fit. We're going to go out. Even if it's a full 15, 30 seconds of awkwardness where you're packing up all the kids, taking them to the discipline spot, and like, this is what we have to do now. It's not always perfect.
No.
Don't feel awkward. Other people are cheering you on.
Yeah.
I guarantee you in the church.
Yeah.
The pastor is not angry unless he's, dumb, but I'm never annoyed when there's a crazy amount of, like, if a kid, the classic, like, the kid is in the middle of the pew in the middle row.
Yes.
There's people, our church has been packed lately. And there's like 6 families between you and the end of the row.
Island hopping to get out.
And a baby starts just absolutely saying, I am done with this service. Yeah. I am done. I'm leaving the church.
For real,
we just chuckle.
During the week when I'm, disciplining or have a child run away from me or say no or, be unself-controlled with their body, I'm literally thinking I need to discipline right now so I don't have to discipline for this on Sunday.
Yeah.
I'm literally thinking that all week long.
Yes, absolutely. Like, what went wrong? Ooh, I'm yawning. What went wrong last week?
Mm-hmm.
And how can we train for that?
Mm-hmm.
It's like a coach. Oh, our team, we did really good on offense, but our defensive line was like super porous, and we got 12 sacks against us. So we got to work on our defensive line this week. Same thing. If it's like, hey, confession of sin this week. Nobody was kneeling. People were chucking.
You were climbing
stuff.
under the pews.
They had the hymnal and they're hitting their brother on the head with it. Then you know what we're going to do? We're going to kneel. We're going to practice praying and confessing our sin this week. That's what we're going to do. Another thing as well, I think that's very important and easy to overlook, especially for families that aren't musical, like you're not musical, is to teach your kids how to sing. It's a skill. You need to teach your children how to participate in the singing and the music and the liturgy. And think about it from their perspective. They can't read, right? They don't know the songs. So they're just like, what am I supposed to do in this time? Like everybody's standing up singing. I can't sing. I don't know the words. How do you help a 2 or 3-year-old learn to sing? You practice.
Yeah, just practice during the week.
Sing the songs a lot.
Yeah.
Like little kids can learn songs even though they can't read. They memorize them.
Daphne, she was singing a funny psalm while we were making pretzels today. The Son of God goeth forth to war. The section about loving your enemies. It was just interesting. I'm like, she's
He
sitting
prayed
here.
for those that did the wrong.
Yeah, she's sitting here singing and praying for her enemies.
About Stephen the martyr.
While making pretzels.
Yeah.
Because we chose to make it a priority that we sing the Psalms.
Yeah.
It was cool. It was just, yeah.
In chapel at St. Brendan's, we do this in chapel as well. Kids who go to the school, they're learning how to be in the liturgy all the time with a mini service every Monday to Friday. So one of the things we do, I lead the singing every morning, and I'll pick a new psalm about every 1 to 4 weeks, depending on how good we know it. And then I'll give them all the music, even though they can all read, but not all of them can read quick enough for it to really keep up.
And it's confusing to read it on.
Yeah. But I'm wanting them to get the experience of holding the music, looking at it, getting familiar with it over time, not expecting perfection. But, for example, right now we're singing Psalm 124, Let Israel Now Say in Thankfulness. 3 verses, but it's like old-fashioned language, old setting of a psalm. And at first, the older kids are singing, and the younger forms are kind of like mumbling along. They might know the first verse a little bit. But by week 3 or 4 of singing it, most of the younger kids can hang and can sing significant portions even of the song. And that's a whole psalm that they're memorizing, these little 6-year-olds, 6 and 7-year-olds. And I'll look at them and encourage them like, hey, you're doing so good. And then you can tell, though, when a kid is like naturally precocious with music, they just soak it up. Some kids are going to be a little bit harder. But as a parent, if you can build that time in our church, it's a psalm saying, find the top 20 songs that your church sings and start singing them regularly. Sing them at the dinner table, sing them in the car. Getting your kids practice at this is going to be an absolute game changer in helping them participate in, honestly, one of the biggest chunks of the liturgy that we often forget about training our children for. And for us, it's like not just singing, but we practice standing and singing, not melting around on the pew.
No, I tell
on
Cyril, if whoever sits behind me may or may not hear me always saying him, like, stand tall like a tree, stand tall like a tree. Yes. No wet noodles.
No wet noodles.
And sometimes he does end up sitting quietly. If I know he's genuinely tired, we've been out late, and he's sitting there quietly after standing for a while, I'm not going to put up a huge fight. But for the most part, the expectation is standing and singing. I did want to say 2 other things that have been helpful.
Go ahead.
One of them was seating arrangement, like just play around. If one week it didn't work for the littlest one to sit beside the oldest one, then try the next week. Who knows? Maybe the 2 middle kids would do great together and not fight. So just being really strategic about that. And if there is a lineup that works, then just try to remember that for the next week.
Yeah. Like, it was 2-year-old, 5-year-old, 7-year-old, 3-year-old, 1-year-old, 4-month-old. Okay. Yeah. Let's line them up this way.
And then for a couple years, I did use an umbrella stroller for the toddlers that were the wiggliest ones.
Yeah.
Winnie just absolutely hates it, though. Just does not like it.
Really?
And it was just causing fits, which is why I stopped using it. She was much happier to sit beside me on the pew. It's probably because she's a girl now that I'm thinking about it.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
It's probably, yep. She'll sit fine beside me, but she did not like sitting in the umbrella stroller. So if you can bring an umbrella stroller in, and that might help,
Yeah, that could
one
be
person strapped in.
Yeah, knowing your kids, like that's definitely part of it. Just saying some of them are going to do well with this situation or this aid, and some of them it's absolutely not going to help at all. It'd be worse than
and Alfie is our first infant that just does not sleep in the car seat at church.
Nope.
I don't think he has once.
He's a king.
He hardly
King
sleeps
Alfred.
at home any time except at night. So I've had to, that has been hard for me because with a newborn, at least I was somewhat hands-free for part of the service.
Yeah.
But I'm not at all hands-free right now.
No, not at all.
So it's been really, 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 really tricky for me to figure that out. But like I said, it's been a breeze in some ways.
Yeah.
Which is so weird to say.
Another thing that's been good is I try to do this almost every day with school, on the way to school, or at some point in the day, asking my kids to narrate back some aspect of the liturgy, or in their case, school during the day. Like, tell me about the sermon. What was the sermon about? And sometimes it's funny. They're like, they sat through the whole thing, they have no idea. They're like, I don't even. And then that tells you, okay, well, next time before I'm going to coach you, I wanted you to be able to tell me a couple things about the sermon. I'll tell them when I'm in the pew with you occasionally. Listen to Pastor Kahn. Eyes looking at Pastor Kahn, or eyes looking at Pastor Griffin, so that they know, because they just slouch and their attention will follow their
what
eyes.
They're supposed to pay attention to, yeah.
And so you're coaching them constantly. And at first they don't like it, but it trains their little muscles of focus and attention.
Yeah.
And then they get to where they can, and they can narrate back, and they know, oh, Mom's going to ask me. Dad's going to ask me a question about the service. Mm-hmm. What was your favorite song? Oh, can you sing any? What parts do you remember of that song? And Winnie almost always says, bless the man that fears Jehovah, even if we didn't sing it. So that's how I know she was really locked in. It's like always answering Jesus, knowing that 80% of the time it's going to be at least close. One last thing. Do you have anything else? I have one last kind of thing.
I was just thinking of that funny story that a pastor's wife told us recently.
What was it?
I hope it's appropriate that I tell this story.
We'll cut it out if it's not.
There was a whole bunch of candies that went missing that week, and I think she might have found the wrappers in like a little crawl space at their house or something. And she, went down the line and asked all the kids who it was. She knew it was one of them. None of them fessed up. And she said they got to confession that week. And he came over and he was like, Mom, it was me. I took the mints, Mom.
Yes.
It was like days later.
Our kids have done that.
And he was little too. I mean, I don't know. I think maybe he's 4 at max. And he knew, he was thinking back to what had happened that week.
They're listening.
They are.
When the pastors are giving the exhortation to confession, we're going to confess our sins.
So
let's
funny.
keep short accounts. The Lord is on our side. We're forgiven, but let's confess.
And I go
They're
to,
listening.
I don't do it as much with Winnie right now because my main goal with Winnie is just like to get her kneeling on the floor.
Yeah.
With Cyril, I do try to scoot over to him and just say a simple prayer of like, Dear Lord, I'm sorry for disobeying you this week, and I'm sorry for disobeying Mommy and Daddy. Please forgive me. Thank you for forgiving me and covering my sin. That's
so
simple.
He hears how to confess.
But I heard him a few weeks ago. I was not able to get to Winnie for some reason, and I heard him go over to her and say, now this is the time we tell Jesus that we disobeyed. It was so funny. I was like, you're
that's so
it.
good. He's a teacher.
He's teaching her.
He's a teacher. He's passing it on. Now, Winnie, let me help you navigate the liturgical
It was so
act
sweet,
of confession.
though.
That is so sweet.
And it's not, honestly, guys, this is not a dour thing. We're not like hellfire and brimstone. It's time to confess because you're fearful. It is always like, and the pastor assures us afterwards.
Yeah, as a minister of the gospel, I assure you
Your
that
sins
your
are
sins
forgiven.
are washed away in a sea of blood-bought grace. You're forgiven. All of your sin is forgiven through Christ.
Yeah.
We're not confessing so that we can be justified again every week. We're confessing because the Lord tells us to keep short accounts for our own good.
Yeah.
And so our kids are learning all of this, and they'll shock you every once in a while with something that you're like, I had no idea you had absorbed that as a 2-3-year-old, and they totally had. And then think about how much more that's growing and maturing.
Yeah.
It's like if you want a 20-year-old aged bottle of wine, you have to put it in the bottle and put it on a shelf 20 years ago. So if you don't, this is what I hate about non-family integrated worship where the kids are kicked out into kids stuff. It's like they're not even going to start aging and maturing into the full body of Christ as an active participant in the assembly of God until you put that bottle on the shelf. If you're putting the bottles up from their mother's breast, then by the time they're 20, you've got 20-year-old wine in the bottle, Lord willing. But if you don't do it till they're 12, or if you just distract them until they're 14, guess what you've trained them to do? You now have a 14-year-old that's trained to think service is something to be distracted from.
Yeah.
And this isn't for me. It's this is something adults do. No, let the little children come, and the New Testament treats them as members. So treat them such, right? Treat them that way. I have one other kind of thing I wanted to walk through, and then
Okay.
so I wanted to ask you, because the question asks very specifically, what are realistic expectations? Let's go through as like for a newborn, for a 2-year-old, for a 4-year-old, for a 6-year-old, for a 10-year-old. What are some reasonable expectations? Let's say, obviously, this one's pretty easy for a little baby. What are your expectations for a baby in the service?
Sleeping.
To be a baby.
To be sleeping.
Like just to be a baby, guys.
Be praising the Lord, nursing.
Yes, there's not much that we're asking of the baby.
Yeah, no. This is the rare time, not right now. Once they get to a certain age where they're nursing, like their schedule falls right in the middle of service, that's the only time I typically have a bottle with me. Otherwise, I just try to nurse before and after service.
Yeah. It is important to see, though, that we do have an expectation of the baby, and it is that the baby is going to adapt to the service time.
Yes.
We're not going to say, oh, baby's nap time for the next 6 months is going to be...
That's a good point.
And so I can't come to church.
That's a really good point.
No. Even then, we're training them. Oh, something different. They know, like something happened here. Oh, I'm at church. Like it's not didactic 100%.
Yeah.
So there's an expectation there. It's just like
we've even started doing hospitality right after service on Sundays, and it's just kind of a free fall for nap time now on Sundays, and everybody survives, and it's okay.
Yeah.
And I think you really have to hear that as a mom. You will be okay.
Absolutely.
It's 1 day a week.
Yep.
It will be okay. So, yeah, baby is there. Even if it's nap time, baby is there. Winnie still falls asleep sometimes in service and then goes home and takes a nap anyways.
Yeah.
Alfie sometimes falls asleep. Alfie doesn't fall asleep. I don't know.
Yep.
2.
Let's talk about that 1 to
like
2.5. Yeah, like that kind of range. What are your expectations so that you know, like, okay, they're hitting the goal?
Yeah. My expectations is that they can stand and they know which songs to raise their hand for because everyone else around them is raising their hand. They get little reminders and encouragements. Never mean they're not going to be disciplined if they don't raise their hand unless it's like you were sticking your tongue out at me and not raising your hand.
Yeah, like raising your hand and like hit you.
Yeah, that's
Stop
different.
it, Mom. I'm not raising my hand.
But again, that's not because they're not raising their hand that they're not getting disciplined.
It's because of other naughtiness.
Yes. So, and then for the most part, they can sit through the service quietly. They're wiggly, yes. Do they look around at people and smile? Yes. Is the expectation that they can talk? No. If they're talking, they're out immediately.
Yep.
And I will tell my children that during the service, like, it's not a time for talking. It's not a time for talking. And I will let them go to the bathroom, but typically I don't let them even get up for drinks or anything because it's kind of like, I know you had half an hour before.
It's 90 minutes. You're going to be fine.
Snacking and drinking, you'll be just okay.
Because they learn that those are things that are, if they're always allowed to get a drink or go to the bathroom, guess what, guys?
They're going to always be
5
thirsty.
5 times a service. Like, I'm thirsty and I need to pee.
Yeah.
Those go together.
Yeah. And Winnie is potty trained right now, so I just make sure she goes to the bathroom before service, and she doesn't get to say that a lot. I will take her once, and if she says she needs it again because she's realized I can get out, I don't go again. I just tell her, we're almost done with service. You can hold it, because I know she can.
Yeah. Do you desire to be shrewd financially for your family? It takes wisdom and dedication to build and pass on personal wealth, as mature, responsible leaders must.
Joe Garrissey with Backwards Planning Financial is at your side to integrate investments, debt, insurance, tax strategies, and legacy planning in a holistic approach.
He coaches his clients to act wisely with the resources God expects us to turn a profit on, to love our children and grandchildren well.
Tap on the link to his website in the description and contact him to get started.
Or visit him directly at backwardspanningfinancial.com.
Discover the gentle touch of QP Goat Soap.
That's right, she said goat soap. Introducing QP Goat Soap, a Christian, homeschooling, family-owned business with a great story behind it. One that really captures the heart of what we're all about here on Bright Hearth. For Quinn Pittman's 9th birthday, he convinced his parents to get him a pair of Nigerian dwarf goats, known for their sweet and creamy milk. Quinn not only excelled at caring for his small flock, it's since grown. Now an enterprising 16-year-old, Quinn and his family makes high-quality soaps that will leave your skin feeling soft and silky smooth from the increase of his herd.
Head over to qpgoatsoap.com or tap on the link in the description of this episode to pick up a pack of his handcrafted soap today. Available in men's, women's, seasonal scents, and more, you'll love this family-owned business. And even better, use the code BRIGHT10 at checkout for a discount on your order. You can find that code in the description as well.
That's right, and that code is all lowercase, BRIGHT10, BRIGHT 10 at checkout for a discount on your order.
What would be the next stage?
What about, coming into kindergarten through third grade kind of age?
Yeah, kindergarten through third grade would probably be where they're singing.
Yeah, because they can read.
Singing. Yeah, they can read, or they at least like see enough of their peers around them and are around the music enough that they know it by memory.
Yeah.
Daphne's not reading 100% independently yet, but she knows a lot of these songs by heart at this point.
Yeah.
And it's kind of at that age where they're now confessing on their own. I'm not necessarily checking in with them, but I will say, like, if something happens during the week, discipline-wise, and, you know, we've had a long conversation about it, I will say to them, like, this is an example of something that, like, we need to get back in fellowship, so you don't need to confess this on Sunday, sort of a thing. And then
go ahead. And then just above that, I guess, is because after that, fourth grade and up, it's starting to be more mature. You're actually participating as a full.
Because they take communion. Even Ari has helped serve in certain points. So they're kind of like full-fledged members, you know?
Yeah, and then some of the check-ins and the discipline might be more areas where it's like they know what to do, but they're choosing to be distracted by a friend in church or something like that, where we're learning the appropriate times for goofing off and friendship. There's a time for that.
There's often
totally
times
fine.
where I'm saying, boys, it's not okay to wrestle right in front of the one doorway that goes out to the bathrooms.
We're not allowed to be on the ground in the sanctuary. We tell them, you know, Ben helps enforce this too. No kids on the stage. We don't run in church. Yeah,
we really don't like running. I mean, it happens. I'm pretty quick right now.
We have 150 kids in the room, so
because of hospitality and Alfie being so little, I'm pretty quick to leave the service. But when I was staying and really trying for everyone to be camped out around me. That's part of why I don't stay, though, is there's just so many of them that I don't think it's a helpful expectation to do that. So it's kind of one of those things where it's like I go to almost every single church event we ever have. Yeah. It's not like they're missing fellowship of any kind. So the fact that we leave right after service is just, it is what it is for now.
Yep. And I stay and do my pastor thing. And,
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you can't.
No, I can't.
You can't help. So
no, I can't
leave right away.
I can't help with from almost beginning to end. Basically, I'm not helpful because I have vocation. This is what I do, and the kids also know that. Like, Daddy is serving the church, and so I tell the older kids, like, you need to help Mama. You need to be a help to Mama. Daddy's serving the church. You need to be a help to Mama. Any last practical thoughts, anything like that before we wrap it up?
I just hate those posts on Instagram. They're like, Mama, Jesus sees you. If you're sitting in the back with your crabby baby and your crabby heart, he sees you. I hate those posts.
Your crabby heart is not okay. Repent.
Yes. I think it's just a false view of what worship is. I think just like a misunderstanding entirely in our evangelical culture of what the church is and what Sunday is for and what worship is. So I cringe at those things because there's so many solutions to the problems, starting with getting your heart right.
Yeah, we have a generally low view of women in the church where we treat them like they don't have moral agency, like they can't sin.
Can't do a hard
like
thing.
Their sin should be coddled and they can't do hard stuff.
Yeah.
I'm like, I know my wife does hard stuff you should see her every Sunday. It's amazing. And it's because her arms are clothed with strength. Proverbs 31. I know she'll do me good all my days, and she's helping me accomplish this mission that we both believe in. And so it's worth our strength.
Yeah.
It's worth putting to death your crabby heart, getting to work, and like thinking we're raising immortal souls. We're going to have these kids for a short period of time before we hand them over and they become mature and they go off and they start their own households. Like, this is just a short period of our lives.
Yeah.
And so we can run hard in this season of the race, and we hope to run hard, obviously, through the finish line. But like, you'll get strong. The Lord will provide for you. So don't let yourself, I think that's a big one. Don't let yourself wallow in self-pity. It's like, pastors' wives, this is so easy for you to do. I have it harder than everybody else. Blah, blah, blah. And you start self-pitying, and it's like,
something that
toxic.
I would like to mention. I don't really know what the solution is, but between January and June of this year, I went to church 5 times.
Yeah.
Because of how sick everybody was. That's not ideal. That was the longest stretch of time that I went to church, as little as I did.
Yeah.
And
because when one kid's sick, and it's just like a normal family, dad and mom could rotate staying home with one of the kids and take the rest.
Mm-hmm.
I can't take all the kids to service with me.
Yeah.
So it is,
and even if you typically do take the older 3,
kids,
but I still have to stay home with younger kids. I do feel like it is normal and natural. I did get very lonely because I knew I was missing out on Sunday, and it wasn't I remember when I was a young mom, when I'd throw a pity party, like a temper tantrum, when it was a temper tantrum of like, darn it, I have to stay here with the sick kid again. But it was more just like loneliness, lack of fellowship, like that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. So I tried to make light of it. When people are like, oh, I haven't seen you around in a year. You're like, yeah, I know, literally. Thank you.
Yeah, it's actually true.
But just like really seeking, I just was really diligent to try to go to psalm sing when I can. It was really hard to get to psalm sing over the winter too.
Yep.
Really diligent to try to keep inviting people over when I can, or just like get together for park dates or different stuff like that, because I knew I'm created to be in the body of Christ. I'm not there. I am still doing acts of mercy on Sunday. So I am worshiping. I'm just worshiping with a sick kid at the bathtub, trying to get his fever down, sort of a thing. But honestly, even that perspective, I thought about that so much this winter. Like, these are acts of mercy. This is my worship today. These are acts of mercy.
Yeah, that's why the confessions give that category. Hey, there's acts of mercy and works of necessity that even on the Sabbath, sometimes you have to do. And that doesn't mean that you're being disobedient. It's the providence of God to put that in your lap in this season. Be faithful in it and trust that He's blessing you in it. Like, He ordained that.
And the kids will even say, they said sometimes like, oh, Mom's not going to worship service. And I was very specific with, no, I am worshiping. I'm doing an act of service on the Sabbath, and it's an act of mercy.
Yeah, so they know.
Yeah. And
you look so glorious right now. I just wanted to say.
Me?
Yeah, look at you. Just recording Bright Hearth. Got a baby you nursed to sleep over there on your lap. Totally chonked out. He's just absolutely asleep.
I was trying. Oh, I remember.
To interrupt. You just looked good.
Sorry. I want to say this last thing because this was very helpful for me. I said when Cyril was a newborn, number 4 was when I had the hardest time in church. I had the kids in church with me since Ira was a baby, because Ira would not go to nursery even if we had it.
Yeah.
He refused to go. So I wasn't like I wasn't used to them. It was just really hard to number. But I remember you telling me, I was like, it's just so hard. And you just kind of told me like, and God has decided that for worship for you, it is hard. Like, He gets to decide that.
Yeah.
You don't get to say, I want the easy type of worship. He decided it's hard and it's good. And it just was like, okay, it helped me stop feeling like I need to make this less hard. And it was kind of like, no, it's hard and good. And it's like, still worship. Like,
there's something I'm missing if I would just get the right technique.
Yes.
No, it's just hard. This is a difficult season. You're actually doing your calling correctly.
I swear, guys, I used to be sweating from head to toe. Yeah. Most Sundays I would get home and I was just like, I feel like I ran a marathon because of how much it takes out of you.
Yes.
So, anyways.
Shield made an energy. All right, well, thanks for listening, guys. We hope it's been helpful. If you like the show, you want to support it, and also just be able to ask your questions and things like that, we do have a Patreon channel where we post a weekly In the Kitchen episode, a little short podcast episode just for our patrons there. Jump on board and sign up with the link in the description below. And for most of the tiers, we'll send you a Feed the Patriarchy mug. So your coffee will guaranteed taste 33% better in that mug. For legal reasons, I'm being told that I'm not allowed to actually make that claim. But I think it does, and it's actually 100% true. So anyway, thanks for listening, guys. We hope this is helpful. You feel free to keep sending your questions in for this season with the link in the description as well. And we'll catch you next time on Bright Hearth.